What's up, YouTube? We're back again this week for another week's episode of Three Simple Men Making Their Way Through the Galaxy. It's Ryan, Mike, and myself. This week we're doing something a little different. For the past 51 episodes, we've been stuck in the Clone Wars. We figured we'd take a break from that, and we're going to move into discussing the Acolyte, which Ryan and Mike have seen these episodes. We're getting my first reaction of it because I have not been able to watch it. So we just finished the first episode. What was the title, boys?
So the title is Lost slash Found. But yeah, I want to just circle back to what you just said. Uh, this is going to be very difficult for me and Mike. But I think we're going to do it. We can't give spoilers. Tom hasn't seen the rest of this show, so you will be getting no bold predictions from me and Mike. Um, I mean, it's the same as how it always has been for us two because we've already seen Star Wars, so it's kind of I guess the closest thing would maybe be Clone Wars because I had only ever watched through it once, and I think you guys had watched through it a couple times. Um, so it is going to be hard. Like me and Mike definitely need to be very careful. So for our viewers, these will be spoiler free if you're watching along. Like we're not going to talk about what's to come, and me and Mike are going to be real careful. We're just going to talk about the episode. But it's really exciting that we're going to get to see Tom's first reaction to something Star Wars. In hindsight, maybe me and Mike shouldn't have immediately watched them when they came out, but we couldn't help ourselves.
I think this is better. This is much better for content.
It's going to be very cool. Me and Mike did right before we started recording mention to each other that watching episode one now for a second time, uh, the show's fantastic. And, there's bad Rotten Tomato reviews, and it was a whole thing with, I don't even want to, I'm not even going to blame toxic Star Wars fans because I looked at some of those reviews that were negative. I don't even think they're from Star Wars fans. Um, I think it's just from people that don't like that it's a female director and that there is a diverse cast, which is upsetting because like the good reviews are all great. They talk about the story, the characters. The bad reviews that you see on Rotten Tomatoes say things like, "Get in your Millennium Falcon and fly far away from this one." Like that's not even. There's no proof that person watched that in that comment. So I really think it is. And it was. It was definitely just review bombed, which is a shame. But
I mean, can
I
I
think
just
I think it's
piggyback
something
off that?
special.
Can I
Yeah,
piggyback off that? I'm like I've heard all those things. Like if there's something I don't like, it's not because of like you said, a female director or a diverse cast. It's like, okay, maybe it's like maybe I didn't like this part of the story, like that didn't make sense, or maybe or like I don't know, maybe the lightsaber hilts maybe look like Lego size hilts. I'm like, okay, those are one of the things you can not like about it, but as you gotta keep, you always gotta give it a chance. See how it goes. If you go through the whole season with an open mind, and if you still don't like it, you liked it for your own reasons, not for any, well, pardon my language, any fucking bullshit toxic reason.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, also this is definitely a new jump for Star Wars fans because obviously we've been into the Skywalker saga, and this is, for Disney trying to keep this, they're trying to keep it quiet of what exactly this is. We're going probably 100 years before the whole
It
entire
is.
Skywalker
So
saga
for
into the
quotes,
era of the High Republic, and we've never had any High Republic content before. So like the fact that this is now, I think the High Republic was first through novels. There was a brief glimpse of it in the Jedi Survivor game released by EA, but now this is the first TV show or movie series where we're really exploring like what life was like before everything that we all come to know about Star Wars. So to your point, yeah, let's definitely have this with an open mind, and let's see what this new director gives, and we'll definitely see things from certain points of view that we kind of question, like, wow, like I've never experienced this before when watching the main trilogy, the Clone Wars, or any of the other spin-offs. So I just, yeah, let's keep this with an open mind. And I mean, I just would have to say with some of the spin-offs, like they've been a good hit. Like, I mean, The Mandalorian's been successful. I mean, with Rogue One, obviously between the episode 3 and 4 timeline, let's give this a chance.
Though I can understand a lot of people's frustration too because they only care about a storyline where it's like, okay, I understand because Star Wars is bought by Disney and Disney is just a conglomerate of just pushing that stuff out for more revenue. And it kind of deteriorates like a good storytelling process. But like we all said, keep an open mind, see how it goes far along. And I don't know if you guys have anything else because
Well, I want to hop into the episode
yeah.
and that to go back to what Mike said, but the episode starts unlike what we previously watched chronologically. The films start with our very traditional classic crawl, and then the Clone Wars start with the individual quote, and then obviously the on the front, my favorite part of the Clone Wars, where we get the recap. This one starts with almost a crawl, like the content of a crawl, but no crawl. It's just some blue text that comes up on the screen, and we get that this takes place 100 years. So, Mike, you were right, before the rise of the Empire. So, less than 100 years, I assume, before Phantom, right? If it's the rise of um, but with that, we start off on the planet of Yuta. And we have a character doing what characters do best in the Star Wars universe, entering a cantina. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have a band. No fun music.
That's minus a point.
So yeah, unfortunately, we see someone who's coming in looking for a Jedi, and we find out this is Master Andara, played by Carrie Ann Moss, who we've all seen her from The Matrix, Jessica Jones, and Ryan and Tom, film buffs. I'll probably need you guys for any
Well,
other.
I mean, clearly the Matrix. She's Trinity in the Matrix. For those that don't know the actress's name,
I love the
and
fact that her lightsaber color was green too.
yeah, and right off the bat, this mysterious stranger is looking for a fight, and the Jedi's reluctant, but eventually obliges, and a fight breaks out. Um, this was in the trailer, and then like the earlier release when we went and saw Phantom Menace in theaters, or I don't know, I'm not sure if you guys did. I know
25-year re-release. That was the scene at the end of the
at
credits.
the end of the credits they showed this fight scene too, and it got me so pumped because it is really cool. A lot of the force gets integrated into the fight. It's kind of hand-to-hand combat meets the force meets daggers like getting thrown and being used, a little lightsaber action, some really fun, like almost Matrixy-esque
Yeah,
uses
I
of
was
the
about to
force,
say.
which I think was definitely a little homage to Carrie Ann Moss. But what a uh fun fight scene that then ends in who I thought was going to be a lead throughout this entire series. Her death. She gets
Yeah.
killed. Stabbed, distracted by saving, in a Jedi way, saving someone else. She dies. Definitely a little hubris. She doesn't pull out her lightsaber for most of the fight. Seems like she just doesn't think this person, who she does recognize, she says you. Like, so she does recognize this mysterious lady. But yeah, it reminded me a little bit of spoiler alerts for Game of Thrones, but a little bit of end of season 1 of Game of Thrones where I was like, they killed Sean Bean? He's the main character. How do you kill Sean Bean? Obviously scaled
Well, if you
down.
look at his filmography, he always ends up.
I thought there was like I thought someone did a study on Sean Bean, and I think they found out that it was like
He had like
40%
the most deaths.
when he died.
I
But
think
it's always
that's what
the
Tom was
big,
just referencing, yeah.
it's always the
Fantastic
big
actor,
stuff that
but
he dies in that like, oh my God.
But again, it didn't last as long, but I was that convinced going into this that she was going to be a main. I was shocked. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I
Yeah,
was
just
absolutely
in the
shocked when she
trailer,
just
like
got
seeing
killed.
her like in different scenes, whether it's the cantina or wherever else, I'm like, oh yeah, like they've got Carrie Ann Moss, and then like within the first 5 minutes, I'm like,
First scene.
dead, like what?
Yeah, it's
and
crazy.
then watching that scene, watching that assassin, pretty much learning the ways of the Jedi, because we're talking about 100 years before the rise of the Empire. There's peace. When there's peace, there comes a sense of calmness of like there's no real threat. But this assassin seemed to use one pivotal thing, a weakness of the Jedi, if you will, their compassion to preserve and protect life, which inadvertently costed her the Jedi's life.
And she's a force wielder too. This assassin is using the force and using it well, I would say.
Yeah, even and Master Indar was like, "Who trained you?" And like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think there was a mention that opening crawl where they're saying like, this is the era of the Jedi, but there is a small group out there who is wielding the Force, and yeah, I mean, this is very different from what we've seen in all the shows so far. Like the fact that wasn't until like the assassin threw daggers at Carrie Ann Moss that we first see her pull out her lightsaber. Like the fact that a Jedi was using more hand-to-hand combat, whereas in the movies, they're gonna think with their lightsaber. So
Yeah.
yeah, different. I mean that's one of the things. Like, oh wow, like I'm thinking, when are they gonna pull out the lightsaber? And she's doing that, and like she saved what 2 or 3 lives during that fight. Um, because like the assassin jumped up top, got one of the civilians, and then when she threw the knife at the end, yeah, different change of pace with this fighting.
All right.
Yeah.
So before we continue talking about everything, can I give you my overall reaction and what I think about this episode?
Yeah.
So a couple of things. One, this episode gives me the reminiscence of the Ahsoka Tano episode in the Clone Wars where it's a mistaken identity, where she's being tried by the Jedi. And also, this episode is hypocritical in the sense of with Master Soul talking about, closing your eyes, trusting the Force, your eyes can deceive you. We're watching the Jedi in this episode, just seeing what they see, and they're just convinced. So it's kind of hypocritical. And I think, in my theory, it may not be the start, but it's the slow process of the beginning of the downfall of the Jedi, which we know will happen 100 years from now.
So, to piggyback on that, and to jump almost to the end of the episode, just so we can talk about this. At the end of the episode, it's revealed that our character that we kind of meet, Osha is her name, that she does have a twin sister, or did. So I want to go back to the quote you just said from Soul in the beginning. So we get, hold on. Let me just hit a little bit of this first. So our next scene is we're on a Trade Federation ship, and we see what appears to be the assassin in different clothing and different temperament. She's like friendly.
For a second there, I thought this was a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation.
Well,
What you do
yeah, and it's like,
is different from what you do at night.
yeah, so it appears that the assassin is just, now back working on a ship. But the reason I wanted to hit that real quick is Soul's quote, that Tom said, "Close your eyes can deceive you." He's not just talking to the younglings he's training, he's talking to the audience. Our eyes are deceiving us, right? Like we're seeing the assassin, and then in the next scene we're seeing the assassin again, and we're like I know when I watched it the first time, I was thinking, like,
Yeah,
is this like a head trauma situation? Like, does she have split personalities?
Mhm. Yeah,
Or and then we learn about the twin, and I'm like, oh, so there's a twin. But I think at the end of the episode, we're still left with, is there a twin? Or does she have split personality? We get this weird Force dream sequence thing where she's talking to a young version. So we don't really know what's going on yet. But again, I think the "close your eyes can deceive you" is such an important quote that Soul tells us. And it's like, don't believe what you see, because something else might be going on. And this is kind of labeled and as like a murder mystery, like a
Mhm.
whodunit, and it does have those great vibes.
Not
was
to mention,
that's the one with the candlestick in the library.
But back to the Trade Federation ship. I'm sure we have a lot of stuff on that ship we
one
want to
more
talk
thing
about.
too. I mean,
Oh
there's
yeah,
definitely a callback to episode 4 when Ben is training Luke on the Falcon, and he said, and obviously he gave him the blast shield helmet, but he said, "Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them." So that was
yes,
definitely that was a wise callback to episode 4. And
yeah.
as
Well, I would
they
assume
I'm
they
wearing the
made
Ben
it.
Kenobi shirt, so
Yeah. Well,
well
and
done.
they made it. They made it. I mean, right? That's just the teachings of the Jedi, right? So
Yep.
it's not even just like a reference quote. It's what the Jedi teach. I mean, we know that, right? Because we've seen that last year. We see it with Rey. We see it with like that is part of the teachings is, trust in the Force, But I think within this too, it has that other layer of talking to the audience, which is cool. It's the filmmaker in me that loves that concept. But so we're on this ship. We meet Pip, who it's one of those,
Yep.
don't
I
you
mean,
dare
if
hurt Pip.
you're going to jump into a new generation of Star Wars, whether it's Clone Wars, the sequels, you got to have that lovable droid, whether it's R2 and 3PO, BB-8, BD-1 from the Jedi Fallen Order Survivor thing, and now we've got this new pet. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and yeah, Pip is a cool little, you know, Pokédex. I don't know. It's like a little
This thing
handheld.
looked like a Pokédex.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Gotta
different modes,
catch 'em all.
fire extinguisher, using like a screwdriver or something just to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Cool
Yeah.
little
He, he's,
Swiss Army
Very
knife
versatile
droid.
droid here.
he's MacGyver in a droid form. I'm gonna help you in every situation.
But so we learn that this woman who looks much like the assassin is Osha Anasea. She's working on the Trade Federation ship as a mechanic with Philic. I mean, how great is it to see the Trade Federation again in live action? Like, it's just
Yeah.
when I thought they couldn't do any like fun references, like just that alone, I was like, okay, and they're just as shitty. Like they got these two people out on the ship trying to help them, and they're just shit talking them. It's like, all right, classic Trade Federation. And then furthermore, the Jedi arrive and they just try to lie to them, and oh no, we don't have any mechanics working here. That would be illegal. And then immediately cower under the thought of some sort of
Yeah,
Jedi
I
force.
thought like they would just resort to the for these being peacekeepers. Here we are with this Yord ready to pull a mind trick on him. You're going to tell me what I need to know, and like
Yeah, Yord is
it's like I
we
mean
see it later on too.
for what we
Totally.
see it for 100, in a time of peace, here we are ready to intimidate with the Jedi mind trick. It's like I don't
Not
know,
just that, his
Yord
lightsaber.
sus.
Yord, we get Master I already forgot her name. Uh
Master
Indara
Ondar,
says that Jedi don't or she's Jedi don't pull their weapon or sorry, the assassin says to Indara that Jedi only pull their weapon if they intend to kill.
Yord was
And
right.
and then we see Yord whipping that thing out like that later in the episode, like instantly, and he's got the yellow lightsaber, which is always fun to see in live action.
So we
Uh,
got green and yellow.
yep.
Just
Um,
ahead we see a red. So we got the street light.
and we do get red at the end. Um, but we learn that Osha left the Order 6 years ago. We learn that she joined when she was 8 years old after her entire family died in a fire on the planet of Brendark. So we get a lot of quick backstory on this Mechnik, former Jedi, has a relationship with Yord, or at least used to, where they knew each other. And then unfortunately, the bartender's there as a witness, and close your eyes can deceive you. He sees the assassin, he says that's her, so they have to make the arrest. But then very out of care. Well, interestingly enough, we do notice the assassin is about to kill that bartender and then chooses not to when she notices a small child with the bartender. So we do see a little compassion from the assassin, which also still makes things kind of foggy because then on this prisoner ship, one, we see this weird Iron Man looking droid. That's like a prison guard droid.
I
Very
have to say, he
clanky.
did look like Iron Man for some reason.
And then we get uh before we get more prison stuff, we end up on Coruscant, which I love seeing the Jedi Temple. I love being on Coruscant. That was really cool. Awesome to see right in the first episode. We get the quote, we get introduced to the character Soul, played by Lee Jung Jae, who very recently, famously, was in Squid Games. He was the lead in that. And personally, I think he makes this entire series. I think his acting is fantastic. I think he is instantly, just even from meeting him in this episode alone, like up there with
Star
like
Wars fan, isn't
with
he?
with Qui-Gon Jinn. Like I just like the
Hey,
I
I was about to say he gave me Qui-Gon vibes because he was using the Force as an ally, as a guide,
he's a
not
Jedi's Jedi.
he's truly like a Jedi counselor. When it's
Yes.
like because you had like always playing the old Republic games, you had blue for the Guardian, green for the counselor, and yellow for the Sentinel. Blue being more lightsaber wielded attacks and all that stuff. Green being more your use of the lightsaber skill is good, but you also use the balance of the force as well. It's so he really gave me Qui-Gon vibes. I think he's a very interesting character. I like him. Very interesting that their colors are like all like you see the white robes, like the yellow. It's giving me like this is like their so-called golden age of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, they are the High Republic robes, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
the
High Republic, but when they're out on a field mission, then they change to the traditional Jedi clothing that we.
browning. Yeah, light brown, brown.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Soul definitely. I agree with you 100% there. But one of the things that jumped out when they were talking, there's this discussion about attachment. And we know, like with attachment and compassion, Qui-Gon felt the same way about Anakin. So you see that kind of bond, and when brings up Osha, and then yeah, the Padawan come in. It's like, why do you still keep an old hollow projection of your old Padawan? So yeah, definitely Qui-Gon vibes here with this Master Soul.
yeah. So then we also meet Master Venestra, who is a green lady. I don't know the alien species. I don't know what the
Uh, from what I've heard, I believe she's the same species as we just not saw. When we saw him not too long ago in the Geonosis episodes, Master Luminara and Barris. I think she's supposed to be the same species, but a
Okay.
little bit darker green though for some reason.
Yeah, she's definitely green. She's got the tattoos on the head. Um, I guess it's possible.
Mhm.
And she does give us a little interesting backstory into time, because she's concerned about this investigation and that it kind of remain quiet, because we learn that the Jedis have political enemies. Soul mentions it, and so we don't know. Right now we don't really know who the political enemies are or what's going on. It's interesting to see, like, obviously the Jedi, they're in Coruscant, so they're dealing with that, and the Republic, and I'm sure there's a Senate and all that fun stuff.
Like
Um,
this is where it starts slowly spinning the wheels of what will happen with the Jedi, the distrust of the Order, even within the Order, where it's not about what the Jedi stood for, it's now all political.
mhm.
And and again, they're presuming that a Jedi killed one on their own. If word gets out, yeah, it's going to be used, and who knows what kind of retribution in this time would be used in this time of the Star Wars era that would be used against the Jedi.
Yeah. Um, but so then we could jump back to the prison ship. And OSHA's there in one cell with a prisoner that has what looks like a starfish over his mouth and nose, we learn it's a diebuck from another prisoner, a parasite used to restrain the most, I guess, violent of prisoners, which is interesting because why didn't they put that on OSHA if they thought OSHA was a Jedi killer? But this other guy's got it on him, and they say it messes with the mind. And then we learn that all the other prisoners are planning a prison break, and OSHA's like, "You're crazy. I don't want to participate in that." Um, they deactivate the potentially the coolest autopilot since Airplane. These two droids that just fold in and become the seats of the ship, which I don't know if you guys know the movie Airplane, but the autopilot in that is a blow up pilot that comes out of the pilot ship, and it kind of reminded me of that. Like, oh, this is just droid versions of that autopilot.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. Don't call me Shirley.
But you know, this it happens, and then what again got me confused because it was like, all right, at this point I was still kind of like, okay, this is the assassin playing dumb, but then all the prisoners escape, they don't let her out, and the guy with the dye buck on his face. Uh but then the ship kind of hits a asteroid or something, and Pip falls out of storage, and uh she's trying to reach to him, and he's out of reach, and she's like trying to use the force. We even get like kind of a little bit of the force music, and she can't do it. And I'm like, you used the force plenty well earlier. Um, she can't use it now. And then the ship jostles. She gets Pip, gets out, is about to go into the escape pod, but then turns and decides she has to save this prisoner. Um, but she can't carry him or lift him. Uh, and she takes the thing off his mouth. He immediately jumps up, pushes her out of the way, and hops into the escape pod and leaves her behind. So again, it was interesting that somebody who just killed a Jedi would then want to save a random prisoner. So definitely a little confusing because at this point we haven't heard anything about a sister. Um, and then we get the crash landing on the planet of Karlak, which is an ice planet. Looks a little Hoth-esque. And then we learn that Venestra has given the Soul the power to put together a small team to go and try to see if OSHA is still alive. He says he can sense that she is. And we get introduction to the Padawan Jecki,
Yeah.
who I like her. She's got a little attitude, and I like it.
Mhm.
Throws a
Yeah,
little,
things I
little.
will say about that moment, they got away, but ultimately they were captured and brought back to Coruscant, and they're like, oh, it's that Jedi killer's fault, and then that one soul used the Force again to get him, be like, tell me the truth, what's going on here. And it's like, yeah, she helped me, I betrayed her, and I don't know if she survived, but yeah, I kind of want Tom to take point on the crash landing on Karlak, because we do see some interesting moments there.
Yes, but I want to touch really quick on your Soul mention. Uh, it just took Soul to Jedi mind trick this dude. A few episodes ago, we needed three Jedi,
Well,
Mace, Obi-Wan, and Anakin to mind trick. Uh,
well, I mean, it was just, I mean, it's not like this guy was like, I mean, he was a prisoner. It's not like a Cad Bane, like someone who's like very resistant to Jedi mind tricks. So
I guess it was
that's not a meaningful comparison.
maybe. I don't know. I'm just arguing that maybe Soul is more powerful. I don't know. I don't
Uh,
know.
I mean,
But anyway, yeah,
I don't
I'm definitely with you. I just want to talk about Jackie and that. But yeah, Tom, go ahead and let's talk about what happens and what we see on the with when the ship crash lands. It's all you.
Oh man, so watching this for the first time, my reaction was being confused whether it was her doing the assassination or whether her twin sister was alive, she has a vision. She is seeing her sister. She's she's asleep, but she wakes up from that vision dream and she comes to the realization that her sister's alive, and it is most likely her, and it is mistaken identity. Uh, Pretty much, I think now then once Soul and the Jedi team arrive to the planet, we see her at the edge of a cliff, and then first thing I see is what's the Jedi's name? Put the yellow lightsaber. I already forgot.
Yord
Yor.
Bandar, Jedi Knight.
So right off the bat, Yor just pulls out the lightsaber. Well, first it was used as a light. I'm like, that's totally understandable because you want to see where you're going. And then when they come in, he just goes, "Stop! You're under arrest in the name of the Republic." Pulls out the lightsaber, and then watching that scene right there, it gave me the vibes of what was that movie with Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford? What's that? The Fugitive, yeah. No. Yeah, it might have been. It's like, I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
Yeah,
Uh,
The Fugitive. I believe.
yeah. So then we just watch it, and then Soul doing Master Soul being, the wise Jedi master that he is, instead of being like, let's arrest her, it's like, I believe you that your sister is alive. And then just put your lightsaber away, put the cups away. We're not doing this. You're just gonna make it worse. He's more adept of the situation at hand because of his compassion, you know. So I thought it was a very good, like, conversation between Osha and Master Soul, and then the difference between some Jedi and other Jedi.
Wanted to talk about the flashback a little bit, or the vision, or whatever.
I wanted to jump on that because there were a couple things that came out during that. So some of the things that they were saying was, I mean, you could really tell that there was a strong bond with the twins, because they were saying like, "I'm with you, you're with me, you're with me, I'm with you." Always one, born as two. So there's clearly a strong connection between the two, and not probably more than just a twin sister bond. Um, and we find out that like, although, and we're seeing that Osha is remembering May as her younger sister because again she was presumed that May had died in the fire, and then we see that moment when they're like the same age and stuff, and then it's like, "Did you kill Master and Dara?" And she said yes, and then we see May's eyes turn black, so we know there's something else going on here. That I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, it doesn't look like anything force related. Maybe there's something else going on, but yeah, it's just yeah, there's definitely more to this. There's more to the twins than what we realize, and yeah, just to your point earlier about how they responded once they found Osha, because you had Yord and Jackie, with the lightsaber and the handcuffs, like, no, like this isn't it, and then have that moment, it's like May's alive, and like, okay, there's definitely more going on here.
And then we get May
Mhm.
because Osha's with them, so this is definitely someone. I think this pretty much solidifies, like, yeah, it's a different person, unless it's a flashback or something. But we get May out on, I don't know if the planet gets named.
Yeah, some water planet, like
Yeah,
I
and
mean, that reminds me of Acto, but they didn't have a name for it, so I can't call it Acto.
yeah, and we hear a voice, an ominous voice that starts off with, "The Jedi live in a dream they believe everyone shares." He then goes on to talk about how you can't kill a Jedi with steel or a blaster. You need to kill them with no weapon at all by killing the dream. And we see May look up, and this figure is standing up on the rocks and ignites his red lightsaber. credit roll.
Mhm.
It's cool. Cool introduction. We're in the Acolyte now, fellas.
Mhm.
So far, episode 1 was good. My reaction was like I enjoyed it. I can't wait for next week where we watch the second episode and see where it goes from there.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Mike, take it away.
Well, one more thing before we
Oh,
close.
ooh.
One of the quotes that did come up and kind of reminded me of a quote that I saw from like the Call of Duty games. They say, "We don't meditate on the past; we are doomed to repeat it." And I guess the equivalent of that quote is, "Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it." So I thought that was
I don't
interesting.
think that was originally Call of Duty, Mike.
No.
I think it was on
I
like.
think that's a pretty famous historical quote.
Yeah,
I mean,
I love that you.
like, they use historical quotes in the game if you die, and I
I don't
think
know if that was Sun Tzu in the Art of War or anything like that, but that is
I
not
mean, I
that is not Call of
You're
Duty.
right though. When you die in Call of Duty, it actually quotes like
Yes.
and like Winston Churchill and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a. But yes, they do talk about that early on. Soul mentions it to Jackie. But Mike, go ahead and take us
All right.
away.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining Three Simple Men making their way through the galaxy. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, and come back next week for some more Acolyte content. May the force be with you always.
Always.